It's so light.
Yes, yes, made by the elves, you know. The blade glows blue when orcs are close, and it's times like that, my lad, when you need to be extra careful. Ah, here's a pretty thing. Mithril. As light as a feather and as hard as dragon scales. Let me see you put it on. Come on. Oh, my old ring. I should very much like to hold it again. One last time. Hmm?
Okay, so this is my rendition of the second period class of Lord of the Rings. So let's take a deep dive on what's going on here. So I decided to put a little establishing shot here, which is nothing more than a static picture that I downloaded from the web. We are a school here, so it's fair use, and we can explain fair use on another day. But this is actually Bilbo's house. And as we can see here, I'm going to press my plus key on the keyboard right here, having the timeline selected. I'm going to press my plus key on the keyboard to make my timeline stretch. I could also have used this little slider down here to make my timeline stretch or contract. So I do have two elements here, track 1 and track 2. On track 1 is the picture, and if we go into effect controls, we see here that I had to reduce the scale, because if I use the original scale 100% that is on that I downloaded, it would not be fitting my HD. It's a big picture. So two things you can do. You can either click on this little square number here and then type in a number, or you can put your mouse over it and then click, hold, and then drag your mouse left or right, and this will change the number. As you can see here, 34 is too small, so we can make it a little bit bigger here, and that's what it was about before. I do have a dip to black transition here, because I want to start everything in black and then fade to the images. Where can you find this transition? By the way, the size of the transition, because we are already here on effect controls, you can define the length or the transition, not exactly the size, the length of the transition. I did decided to make it a second. You can put your cursor right here and then type in whatever number you want, let's say 2 seconds, and then click away from it so you can take uh, uh, assume the number that you just typed. And those numbers here is hour, minute, second, and frames. Remember that film is 24 frames per second, video is 30 frames per second, and slow motion is anything above 30 frames per second. Well, you can slow it down. Another way to change the length of the transition is just to put the mouse at the very end of the transition, or the cursor at the very end of the transition, and you can see here that it has changed from your regular pointer to this little red thing with a white square on it, which means the white square is the transition. Now I can click and hold my mouse and pull it down so it can matches the other transition, and I think I did a pretty good job here. Yes, 1 second. I'm going to do this again and take a look at this number here. As you can see, it's going to change. There you go, 1 second and 20 frames. If I make it a little shorter, it will be less than a second, which is 21 frames, and 24 frames will be a second. So let's put it right there again, 1 second, fantastic, or 24 frames, it's a second. Anyway, all right, I digress. Oh yes, and where you find it, you go on Effects, Video Transitions, Dissolve, and then you have dip to black and cross dissolve. Cross dissolve and dip to black are the two most used transitions in film. So I also did put a little, excuse me, a little logo. Well, not a little. I put a logo, a transparent logo on top of Bilbo's house just to make sure that unsuspecting people will understand what's going on here. That's why it's called an establishing shot. So we're establishing this shot here to be that it's about Lord of the Rings. And I did download this from the web again, right here, and it's a PNG. PNG is a transparent file. We can go into file format later, but I have quite a few of them and they're all PNG, but I decided that the yellow one works best. Now, as you can see here, there is a little animation on the logo that it goes, it increases in size. And how did I do that? Having this image selected, let's go to Effect Controls. And in here, you can see that there's a keyframe. And I'm going to remove the keyframe so we can do it again, or we can do it together. So I am going to click on this little toggle animation here. So you say, hey, are you sure you want to remove the existing blah, blah, blah? Yes. All right. So there's no more animation. So the title now is static. What I want to do is that at the very beginning, I have my cursor here. I am going to click on the toggle animation so I can insert a keyframe. And my beginning scale number is 64.6. I go all the way where I can still see it. If I move all the way to the end, I can't see it anymore because it's I have a dip to black. So right here, I can still see it. And on this one here, I'm just going to position my mouse over it, click, hold, and then drag my mouse to the right until about here. Why? I just picked that number. I think it looks good. Now, if I just leave it as is, it will start growing, as you can see here, and start growing, start growing, start growing, start growing. When the keyframe or where the position of the last keyframe is, it will stop. And that's not what I want. I want this to continue growing all the way to the end. So what do? I click on this little keyframe and I drag it all the way into the end here. And now I have the animation going all the way through the dip to black. And I have two dip to blacks here. I have one for the logo and one for the image moving into a lower third. What is a lower third is this text here at the bottom of the screen. Why it's called lower third? Because if you split the screen in three, you have the upper third, the middle third, and the lower third. That's why we name texts that are on the lower third lower thirds. All right, so here's the scene, and we do have an audio animation or a sound effect here that I didn't quite like it. I put it as she's touching the sword, but swords don't make that kind of noise, so that's kind of weird. So maybe we should put when she's picking up the sword from the table. Maybe this will make a little bit more sense. So all I have to do is to figure out exactly which frame the sword is coming out of the table, which is this one here. And I am going to highlight my sound effect here, and I'm going to bring it and position it as best as I can right here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Right on top of my playing line or my cursor line. And let's play again. Right, that's a little bit more plausible, or something, the sword hit something on while it's coming out of the table, so it made the noise while she was touching the sword. The noise didn't make much sense, so I wanted to reposition. Now you may be asking, how can I add this sound effect? Great question. I did download here a video that has a bunch of sound effects of swords. I found this on YouTube. I downloaded. So if I double click on any clip, we go into the source monitor, and we can play and see all the collection of sounds that he has. All right, you got the point. So let's say that we like this one here for whatever reason. This one. So, and I press my J key on the keyboard to go backwards, K to stop, and L to go forward, and J again, and K to stop. So I stop where the sound begins. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a mark in, or press I on my keyboard to mark in where the sound begins, and then I'm going to press L on my keyboard to go forward. Oop, too much. Go backwards. Right there. And I press out, or mark out, or press O on my keyboard. Now I have a little bit of a sound here that I can drag audio only. If I get this little wave, macroscopic waveform icon here, I can click, hold, and then drag the audio to where the audio track is. Don't drag on top of anything else. And as you can see here, let's make this a little bit bigger. We actually collected a little bit of sound from something else. So we can position the mouse at the beginning of the little piece of audio, the cursor, and the cursor changes from our pointer to this little red thing here, meaning that we can click, hold, and then drag it down a little bit so we can remove that beginning sound. And of course, I'm not going to leave the sound here because it makes absolutely no sense. I'm just going to play so you guys can hear it.
My old sword sting.
This makes more sense if she's kind of stabbing somebody or cutting something. So we don't need the sound here. I just showed you how you go about finding the sound effects and putting where it actually makes sense. And I am putting across dissolve here. Why not dip to black? If I put a dip to black here, everything would go black, even though it's just on this lower third text. It's a funny thing on Premiere. So you put across dissolve, so the lower third is going to dissolve into nothing.
Here, take it.
And I did put those keyframes here in the audio. So this is the video track. This is the audio track. To put a keyframe in the audio track, you need to have your pen tool or press P on your keyboard. So let's select my pen tool here. I could put another keyframe here, and when I have a keyframe, I can now change the volume of the track. Okay, by just moving the track up and down, you can see the decibels going up or going down. And I decided to mute or bring this audio all the way down because there's something here that I don't know. Let's play and listen to it.
Take it.
It's so light. It's so light.
So it's Frodo saying it's so light, but because we're using another clip of Frodo, he's just replying to the scene. He's not in frame. That's why he's lower. So we just need to really make this be mute or bring it all the way to the floor. So it's minus 999 decibels or mute. And then use this one here from the clip that we're having on top of her. So
It's so light.
and here we can match his mouth with the sound because we're actually filming him. And she actually was saying it incorrectly. She was saying made by the orcs. So because we have Frodo's video playing, we can use any dialogue that the other actor did, and I went ahead and I selected the right dialogue. So if we go here on the project and go into Bilbo, this is the clip that I use for the right dialogue, and I have already selected it, but you will see that there's also a little mistake here.
It's so light.
Yes, made by the elves, you know.
So she kind of stumbled upon her line. So
It's so light.
Yes, made by the elves, you know.
so what I did is that I selected the whole thing and then I cut the yes, stumble, cut the stumble, and then resume to made by the elves. And because you're not seeing her stumble, it sounds perfectly fine.
Yes, made by the elves, you know. The blade glows blue when orcs are close, and it's times like that, my lad, when you need to be extra careful.
Now this is called a transition cut. Because there is a cut here, and if I make this track here disappear by clicking on the toggle track output, Now everything here disappears. You see that there's a cut here between two takes, right? Or two scenes or two shots.
Careful. Ah,
And it would make
careful.
absolutely no sense, right,
Ah,
for her to be like this and then jump back on the
here's
chair
a
and then get something else. So we put something on top of this cut as a transition cut to make things more interesting and to
that, my
hide the
lad,
cut.
when you need to be extra careful. Ah, here's a pretty thing. Me through. As light as a feather and as hard as dragon scales. Let me see you put it on.
And I did use another take of Mitro, but I believe that I have muted the sound because the microphone was on him, so her sound is bad. But I wanted to see his reaction of the Mitro, so while she's saying, let me see, put it on, is right here on the waveform. This is the clip that I'm using again as a transition cut.
Let me see you put it on. Come on.
And now she realizes, or she starts seeing that the ring shows
Oh.
up, and she, oh.
My old ring. I should very much like to hold.
So this is fine here, okay? Maybe we should shorten this a little bit and then bring her. Oh, no, we can't. We have a clapper here. All right, so let's Control Z so we can undo what I just did. So let's bring the whole thing a little forward because it was too long. Right there, I can just bring it forward, and let's right click here and ripple delete, so everything behind is going to move forward. I don't have to worry about anything that I did before. Everything was moved forward, so a little bit of a shorter time here. Oh.
My old ring.
And I think that we're spending too much time here, so we need to put something. And I will talk you guys about this a little bit later. That is the rule of third. I'm sorry, not the third rule of third. The rule of threes. That something on screen should not last for more than 3 seconds, and if the camera is static. So we go here. 1, 2, 3. So we should have something else here. We shouldn't allow the scene to last for more than 3 seconds. The scene here is about 4, maybe 5 seconds, so it's too long. Let's put something here to keep the audience entertained. And what I want to put here is a close-up of the ring on his chest. So we do have that somewhere right here. I think this one we haven't used it, so let's take a look at what we have here. Yeah, let's use this part here where his hands are not there. So let's play a little bit, and yeah, that's good, some movement. So I want to drag the video only, I don't want any audio of that, and that's a little bit too big, so let's put it here and play. Right there we can cut because he's moving his head, and I don't want this to be a distraction to the audience. Somebody was talking and he was moving his head.
My old ring. I should very much like to hold it again. One last time.
And now he's hiding the ring. And she jumps forward, and this is again her hands are going forward, and then we have another take here that we need to match, you know, the exact position of her hand so it's seamless to the audience, and we did that perfectly. And then the repent scene and cross dissolve and a Lord to ring here. Now let's go and animate this thing here. This is just, it looks just too bad here, just this thing just sitting there. So let's go animate this. So let's go to effect controls. Now I want this to come and start small again. Well, you know what? No, let's do it the opposite. Let's start big and then go small. So at the very beginning here of the image, I'm going to put a toggle animation. That's my first keyframe. And then at the very end, I am going to click, hold, and drag my mouse. Oops. Click, hold, and drag my mouse. That's pretty good. Okay, and it's all the way to the end. So let's see how that plays. Perfect. All right. The last thing that we're going to talk about on this little rendition of the second period, The Lord of the Rings, is the audio track. And I'm going to make a little bit more space here by pushing the video track up so we can see the music. So music is very important. The music per se, the actual music, did not have any music in the beginning. So I decided to put a little piece of the music there, so it makes things a little bit more interesting because it's more of a jovial song at the beginning. Ah, la, la. And right here we have a keyframe, and I'm bringing the volume down because I do not want the music to fight with her dialogue.
Yes, made by the elves, you know.
So now the music is low, and now we had to stop and start the music again. Because again the music was not long enough, so I just put a little constant power, which is basically a sound transition. So if you go to effects, audio transition, crossfade, constant power, that's the effect that I put here. And basically what this does is it mixes two audio files or two audios. So I am going to mute the dialogue so we can hear how the music is transitioned perfectly here. So perfect transition, no jumps, no cuts, no pops, no nothing, working fine.
When
and the music starts
and it's
again.
Times like that, my lad, when you need to be extra careful. Here's a pretty thing. Me through. As light as a feather and as hard as dragon scales. Let me see you put it on. Come on.
Now here I put a few more keyframes because it's a tense moment where Bilbo starts to realize that his old ring is on Frodo's chest. So I just put a keyframe again, going to the pen tool and then putting a keyframe here, and I increase the volume of the music to match the gravity of the scene here. And let's see.
Oh, my old ring.
Makes a little bit more dramatic, and from that point on the music starts to increase because we're going to a climax where she's jumping to get the ring. And another thing that you can notice here, this is the climatic portion of the song, and it needs to match her movement, her jump. So you have the sound and the movement and her screaming. So everything together makes for a more dramatic scene. All right, there you have it. My rendition of the second period take of Lord of the Rings, one page. Hope you enjoy it. See you next time.